Hey, 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 everybody. It is Friday, and you know what that means. That's right. It is another edition of the Real Deal Pod with Allister and Geoff. It is episode 83. It is a sunny Friday. It is me, your trusted realtor, Allister Carrington, alongside our trusted mortgage broker, our main man, Geoff Lee. Geoff, buddy, how's your week been? How's your Friday?
You know what? You know how they say Fridays are supposed to be your relaxed day? I feel like my Friday is my Monday. It is busy. It is crazy. Usually Friday afternoon, I go and bounce out of here around, a quarter to three and go play hockey, but that's not happening today.
Busy's good though. Busy's good. See,
Yeah.
I guess go ahead.
Just did our countrywide webinar actually yesterday,
Nice.
and it's kind of complementing with what we're doing here. So yeah, that went really really well, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about this year what GLM is going to be doing on the education and financial literacy side of things, and just really giving people um, a 60-minute pod, really, to be quite honest with
Yeah,
you, right? So, yeah, it's in conjunction to what we're doing here and in conjunctions to how we're kind of rolling out 2026. Yeah, I'm really, really, really excited about just mentoring people and giving those little golden nuggets about financial literacy. So it's one of those, it's good. Today's a
that's
good day.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I guess like for me, my weekends aren't quiet at all. I always say like my quietest day, which isn't even quiet because it's my office day though, is Monday. Because it's
Oh, wow.
yeah, well, it's because it's the day that I'm typically not out doing showings with clients. I'll like if I have showings on my listings, then yes, I'm popping out to those.
Yeah.
But I run my business almost like I used to in my previous life, taking care of stores. I Mondays I'm in the office, but then really Tuesday through to Sunday I'm out. Like
Hmm.
I'm out. So it's yeah, Fridays for me are I mean I'm out of here what in 45 minutes I got to get out and do some showings. So yeah, but
Well,
busy is
and
good.
that's the thing. And that's the thing about a realtor's life is that it is evenings and weekends, right?
Yeah,
So it's because that's when people are available. So it's one
it's
of those
it's
love-hate
true.
kind of things, I think.
Right? But you know, it's fun. It's fun. I even got a dinner. I even getting a dinner out of these showings today. So that's fun. I get to
Nice.
spend some time with my clients, get to talk and spend some time with the family. So that's always the most important thing is making sure that the relationship just doesn't seem like a realtor
Yeah.
and a couple type of thing. It's we more so form a relationship. So it's nice
Yeah.
when we get to go out and spend some time breaking bread.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, buddy. Well, let's get into it. Let's kick it because we've got a few things to talk about today. And as always, we are going to start off today's podcast with the hottest segment going right now, and that is
Did
Did
you
you
know?
know? That's right, baby. Did you know? And Geoff, did you know that rents in Canada just recorded their fourth largest monthly jump since 1988?
So rents in Canada, biggest jump since 1988. So does that mean more
Fourth
people?
largest
Sorry?
jump. Fourth
Fourth
largest.
largest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that mean people are renting more? Is that what that means?
No, in price.
Oh, okay. So explain.
Yeah, so that's what I will get into, my friend. So Canada just recorded its fourth largest monthly jump in rental prices since 1988, even while overall housing inflation is cooling. So this is all based on the new inflation report that just came out. So overall, and that was one of actually the most interesting things that I had taken away from the inflation report was that overall housing inflation is cooling. So here's why that matters. Inflation in total inflation picked up speed at the end of the year. Prices overall are rising faster again, even after a period where temporary factors were keeping things quieter. So when you strip out cheaper gas, inflation is sitting right at the top end of what the Bank of Canada is comfortable with. Now's what gets to the interesting part. Housing costs on the surface though look like they're easing. Shelter inflation slowed in December, but that relief is not shared equally. If you're a homeowner, costs are finally cooling. Mortgage interest growth has slowed. Utilities are rising much more gently. Overall, homeowner housing costs are now increasing at a pace below the long-term target for inflation. And that's a relief for people who already own. But for renters, it's a different story. Rent prices rose nearly 5% year over year in December. That's higher than the month before. And while rents are no longer rising as fast as they were at their peak, last month still marked one of the biggest rent increases we've seen in over 3 decades. So why does this feel disconnected from the headlines talking about falling rents? It comes down to what's being measured. Some of the rental reports, track asking rent on vacant units, what a new renter might see when they search online. Statistics Canada, though, tracks rents actually being paid, which reflects the real cost of living for people already renting. Both tell the story, of course, but they're very different stories. And lived reality for renters is this. Even if asking rents soften a bit, most renters, are still facing higher monthly payments when leases renew. So while the homeowners are starting to breathe easier, renters are still carrying a heavier load, and that gap matters. It affects their affordability, savings, and ultimately who can make the leap into home ownership. And that's why understanding the difference between the headlines and the data is so important. So Geoff, this really goes back into what we were saying last year, and again heading into this year, just how much home ownership means. And if you can afford it as a renter, how important it is to start looking to get into the market, especially when we've been talking again at the beginning of last pod, just how much condos have come down in their value and just how much they're supposed to come down again by the end of this year, being another 3 to 5%.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
Well, I just, again, I was a little confused when you said the 4th highest rental prices, but my simple mind, after listening to this a little bit more, it's the 4th highest increase in
Yes.
rental in the last
Since 1988.
Since 1988. So if you're renting, and again, my just simple mind, if you're renting, you are experienced the 4th highest rental increases as a renter since 1988.
Since 1988. Right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it goes back to, complement what you're saying is that I'm curious what that average rental income is, say on a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom condo, to when you break it down to see what your mortgage payment would be. And I bet you, well, I don't know, we should actually do the math on that for the next pod, but I bet you it's either very, very similar or maybe slightly lower, but not enough to have the excuse that you shouldn't buy.
I agree. I think there was at one point in a few sectors of the Lower Mainland where last year where rent and mortgage had basically balanced out, where they came out as being even. And so it wouldn't shock me if we were, again, like you just said, there or close to it getting to be in most markets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would put an inquiry out there to our listeners that if you are currently renting, understand that you're in the 4th highest increase in your rental obligation since 1988. And I would probably even venture out to say is like, okay, well, if you've been on the fence as a renter and you have been looking at condos and interested in the condo market, and sure, yeah, it might come down another 3 to 5%, but is that really, are you really going to wait for it to hit rock bottom? Because sometimes it will, sure, but sometimes it won't. But again, the best opportunity to buy, I always say the best opportunity to buy is when you can, right? Um, but again, in this market, if you are in that rental environment and you're looking at a condo, I think now is a very, very good time for you to kind of switch that gear, take a look at what that mortgage payment may look like, and you might be pleasantly surprised to know that your mortgage payment is equal to maybe less, maybe a little bit higher than what your rental obligation is. But the only biggest difference is when you own something, it's the biggest piggy bank of your life, and you're putting money into an asset rather than money out of an asset that you don't own.
Yeah, and it's not to sound repetitive, right? But it goes back to one of the pods that we had last year, discussing what your long-term value
Mhm.
was when owning versus renting. And when you look at the fact that owning a condo, right? So we know the stat, when you're 35 and you rent, your net worth is $44,000,
Just crazy.
right? When you're 35 and you own a condo, your net worth is $440,000.
Yeah.
So it goes right back to that statistic right there, is to rent and know that what you're paying right now. So let's just say that you're paying $2,000. To know that your rent is only going to again continue to increase,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Year over year, when you can get out from underneath that rent, because your rent is never going to come down, right? So when you know that you can get out of that, get out from underneath that, and purchase something that's going to improve your overall net worth,
Yeah.
it's just crazy to me that that people aren't looking towards that.
Yeah, as I'm also hearing you speak, that stat actually surprises me, to be quite honest with you. I was under the impression that rents were lowering because there was so much supply, right? So, now that I'm
So
thinking
was
about
I.
it, and I hear that stat, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
like that is crazy. So not only this is the other thing we got to think about. Imagine when that supply now becomes lower and lower and lower, and it will. It
Yeah.
will because developers are now stopping making houses for resale. They are continuing their development, but it's going to be for rental purpose use,
Yeah.
right? And as the supply becomes lower and lower and lower, your rent is going to get higher and higher and higher, right? To your point. So,
Yeah. And
so
that
yeah,
was it.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And sorry,
So
just
that
to go ahead. Go ahead.
so I was gonna say it's a great did you know because my mind was thinking that rentals were coming down. My mind wasn't that rentals were going up as far as what they cost to rent them.
Yeah, and so just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, I had actually read an article from the on the in the Globe and Mail last week that spoke about how rental prices were falling, right? And
Yeah,
so when I saw the stats can, when I saw the inflation numbers come out and what stats can was saying about it, right? I again had to reread it and then realize, well, this is the same thing that we talk about when we're listing a home, right? We look at what's available and what the prices and what the market is saying that home values are worth based upon what's going on the market. But we have to take that with a grain of salt because you can ask for anything.
yeah,
It's what also the sold prices, the sold story means more. And so that's the same thing when it comes down to rentals. Just because on paper, right, in the media is telling us that rental rates are falling, that's only because they're reporting on what they're reading rental rates going for at this current moment. They're not going off of what people are actually paying. And that's what stats can when they're taking into account inflation numbers. That's what stats can is the number stats can is putting their numbers behind is what people are paying.
Yeah.
Right? Not what people are asking for when renting their properties.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, those numbers are coming down. That asking price is coming down just because there's so much on the market, right? Those people that are already locked into leases and stuff like that, well, when they renew, they're just going to be paying more, right? So it's a time where I hope that we're our listeners out there are paying attention and really starting to think about what their next steps are for this year, and really start putting a lot of stock into, okay, we know we're getting more comfortable knowing the landscape of Canada, tariffs, all that sort of stuff going on, right? Let's really start focusing on what our next steps are for this year to really make sure that whatever happens in this world, right, going forward, we're going to be okay, right? I'm going to be okay, because affordability is always going to be a thing, right? Yep. So make sure you're affordable, you can take it, and now that your long-term net worth, you're really focusing on what your long-term net worth looks like. Well said. Thank you, sir. Well, man, let's move into insights with Allister. We'll make this one pretty quick, but it was something, I'm the clients that I'm actually going to go see. They have a property to sell, and so I was part of an interview process, of course, right? Which I stress to everybody they should do when speaking with realtors. Really, interview a couple, and make sure you really drill down and ask them some questions. And so, of course, we go into the interview process to sell their home. I got the standard questions, how will you price my home? What's your marketing plan? How do you communicate with me through this process? What experience do you have in my neighborhood? Yeah. And, so I just want to let everybody know, I didn't get the listing because I answered these questions. I actually got the listing because I answered more questions and told them other questions that they should be asking. Because I don't want people to get me wrong. These questions that were asked to me, and they are important. Pricing isn't guesswork. Marketing isn't just throwing up a listing, or shouldn't just be throwing up a listing. And you absolutely want someone that knows your area. But the thing is, in a market like this, in a slower market like this, those types of questions, they really only tell you what the agents know and not how they act when things are challenging or in a challenging market. So when momentum slows, that's when real skill in selling a home, that's when it shows. That's when you see which agents can actually sell a home and not just list it. And the most important thing to ask when you're sitting down with somebody to figure that out are behavioral questions, right? And so what I wanted to share with everybody just are my top 3 behavioral questions that I believe that everybody should ask when interviewing their realtors. I have a list, so for everybody listening out there, just reach out. I have a list of behavioral questions that that I believe you should ask realtors, but here are the top 3 that I have. So my number 1 is, what challenges do you feel my property faces, and how do you feel they should be addressed? And the reason why I say that is because everybody's property is going to have challenges, especially right now, right? Like I have a listing in Richmond right now. It's a condo that within a 1 kilometer radius has 51 other units of competition.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of competition. And that's one of the challenges is 51 other units that priced that are one bedroom, one bathroom, look very much the same and priced very close. Right? So we have to do different things to make that property stand out so that it sells above those other 51. Right? The other thing it's going to do is also give you as a homeowner an understanding of what your challenges are. It kind of will help you take the blinders off, right? So, and a great agent isn't just going to tell you what the market's doing. They're going to analyze your property honestly. They're going to highlight those potential objectives and they're going to give you strategic advice on how to overcome them. And this is going to show you that agent's honesty, proactivity, and real problem solving. They're not just going to give you the jargon of, we'll get it up there and we're going to make sure it's priced right and we're going to make sure it hits all of those websites. That's what all of us do, right? That's called listing a home, right? That's it. So they're going to give you, they should be giving you, I'm sorry, real problem solving answers. The other one that I love to ask is, can you give me an example of a listing that didn't sell within the timeline of the normal days on market? And what did you do next? Right? And the specifics that I want people to listen for are, did they analyze feedback? Did they adjust the pricing, presentation, or marketing? And did they keep the seller informed without panic? Those are a couple of things that I want you guys to listen for when you're asking that type of a question. And the other one is, tell me about a time you had to handle a tough negotiation, right? Because when you're sitting down, I'm going to tell you 93% of the agents you sit down with are going to tell you they're a good negotiator. I'm a great negotiator. I always get my clients their best number, right? But this question shows real strategy under pressure. And so pay attention to how they protected the seller's bottom line and managed low offers and difficult buyers and complex conditions. Because the normal questions, right, that I said before, how will you pay, how will you price my home, what's your marketing plan, etc. Again, they're only going to tell you what the agent knows. The behavioral questions tell you how they perform. Because at the end of the day, selling a home, as I say all the time, selling a home isn't just about getting a sign in the yard. It's about strategy, representation, and peace of mind. And that's what really helps you. And that's my insights.
Love it. Love it. Well,
anything? I just got a question, Geoff. Do you have any questions that behavioral questions that you believe people should ask a mortgage broker? Because I think that's one of the big things. I think because you can chat. I think a lot of people get lost into just Googling or throwing into Chat GPT. I'm going to interview a realtor or mortgage broker. What type of questions should I ask? And that is the stuff that's regurgitated, I think. Right? Just those basic types of questions.
You know, again, I love Chat GPT and I've had questions that have probably been derived from Chat GPT. And I'll be honest, like they're great questions. So use Chat GPT by all means. But I think a lot of the question, but again, you also have to understand the type of question that's being asked, right? It's like using Chat GPT and just cutting and pasting it without really reading it or understanding the context of it. Because Chat GPT is great, but it asks you it can give you some really weird stuff too, right?
Sure.
So most people I find, and this is actually behavioral on their side of things, is that they're doing all the right things. You know, they're interviewing, they're asking questions. Let's be honest, they're guaranteed they're using Chat GPT. But the problem is they're not reading those questions so they understand what those questions are in Chat GPT, right? Because you can ask a question, you can get an answer, but if you don't really understand what you're being asked or what's being asked, as far as you asking me, but you don't know what you're really asking, the answer really doesn't matter, right?
Sure.
And that's why I always say when even on these, like explain this to me like I'm in kindergarten, Allister, because this language is not making sense to me, right?
Mhm.
So yes, I've been asked lots of questions. I think the questions again are, our biggest question is, what's the best rate? And I always will reply as well, how about the personality of the mortgage? Like,
Right. And so so I'm going to just interrupt because that's a behavioral type of question, right? That's a question that's underneath that surface question. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think like if you were just if I'm telling you right now, I challenge you to just pop up Chat GPT quickly right now and type in, tell me the top 5 questions to ask a realtor. And they will say stuff like, uh, or what, yeah, how do you price a home? You know what I mean? Just the complete surface question that everybody that any realtor that basically just started out, you're kind of told just that's what you should know, right? But it doesn't get into how in a slower market, right? How do they actually handle your property getting sold over the other competition that you've got? Because the market's slower.
well, you want to see what ChatGPT says?
What did it say?
What's your biggest challenge right now with buyers or listings?
Oh, that's a good one.
Number two, are you keeping more buyers active or more sellers active this year?
Oh, that's doesn't handle listing though. That's talking about no, that's that you're just saying what should you when interviewing a realtor. I'm saying when you're selling the home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know
Okay.
that when you're selling a home.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
well,
that's
we'll do that next time. I was
yeah,
like, hey, these questions are pretty good.
but
But
that's what I mean
also keep in mind your AI also learns
from
your
you.
behaviors. So
Yeah,
this is why
but
these
no, but
questions
that's
are
what
good.
I'm saying, right? Like, and that's where I get to behavioral based, and it's funny because it kind of it. I was having a conversation with an ex colleague, and I was just he's a VP of a company, and he was talking about how a few years ago they switched their interviewing model, right, and the questions that they asked, and they switched over to behavioral based because what it did was it got them away from having to ask for references. Because
Right.
what most people find, if you read, most people find references to be a waste of time. Because if you think about it, when you're doing an interview with somebody, what type of crazy person will offer you poor references? So you're not actually getting to figure out how they know if they know how to do the job, right? They're just answering those surface questions and then you're getting references saying, "Oh yeah, they're great, they're awesome," and then when they get into the role, they actually don't know how to perform it. So they found that by asking behavioral questions, they had a better understanding of whether that person could fulfill the role that they were being interviewed for, and at that same time, their retention rate grew.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that would be another good pod because I think a lot of people who are employing people now, it's not the old traditional um, will you help our company?
Right. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years or whatever that dumb question?
There's a lot of diss tests that are being happening now, a lot of really kind of um, personality behavioral, just kind of what you're saying as far as, okay, are these people's behavior and personality traits, are they suitable for the culture that we're in and the type
Right.
of company that we are? So I find that a lot of employers are going above and beyond when they're hiring, just because it's a lot of effort to hire. It's a lot of effort to train. Again, probably would be a great pod even a human resource officer to say, hey, like, what are the new ways in 2026 that companies are and how they're hiring, right?
Yeah.
That would be a great pod, actually. But Let's get into my stuff because I know that you have
I
a
got,
short window.
I do.
Um, I have a little bit of a short window. Mine is not going to be very long, but I do want to talk and follow up about the three mortgage mistakes Canadians are making here in 2026.
Is this part
Last,
two?
this is part two. Last week we talked about the loyalty tax, and just really simple is never taking your first offer from your bank. Always shop that mortgage around. Statistically speaking, that 72% of you will not shop that renewal around. You'll just auto renew. And statistically speaking, you are going to be paying about a half to a 1% higher rate if you were to shop it around. So again, remember, mistake number one is called that loyalty tax. What that means again is that when your mortgage comes up for renewal, do not take your bank's first offer, shop it around, and in doing so, you may shave a full percentage off the rate. And again, when we run the numbers, I think it worked out to be about $15,000. This week is mistake number two. Mistake number two is called the cash flow leak. Hey, isn't that creative?
Like it.
All right. The cash flow leak, what that means is that when you carry high interest debt, when you can consolidate that same debt into your mortgage at a much lower rate. Quiz time for you, Allister. Do you remember what Canada's consumer debt is from last week's pod?
Are we at 40%?
As far as dollars, what is the consumer debt that Canadians are holding based on a 2024 report?
Darn it. I'm going to tell you, I don't remember, Geoff. I apologize. 40
That's
grand
okay.
or 10 grand?
Canada's debt, not
Oh,
individual debt.
okay. No, I don't remember that.
$2.5 trillion. So
Oh,
when we
man. That's
take
right.
a look at the entire Canadian population, we add up all their debts. $2.5 trillion is what the debt load Canadians are carrying as a country. An average person carries about $5,000 of credit card debt. They're paying 19 to 20% on that. An average family has a line of credit balance of roughly 39 grand. They're paying up to 10% on that money. An average car loan in Canada is about 26 grand. And again, the rate on a car loan is anywhere from 6 to 7%. Okay, now these are not numbers that I am making up. You can fact check them, but this is based on Stats Canada on a report, a consumer credit report that was done back in 2024. So where I'm going with this is that $1, Alistair, of debt can cost you four times more depending on where it sits. So just because and let me explain this in simple language. If you owe $1 to a credit card company, in real dollars, that could be $4 out of your pocket, right? And the reason that is because they're charging you 20% on the money that you owe them, right? Personal loans, again, 8 to 15%. So if your money, the money that you owe, if it's in a personal loan, you're paying 8 to 15% on that. So maybe that $1 is actually costing you $3. It all depends on what type of loan that you're in and what type of interest payment that you're paying. So we call this the rate gap. And the rate gap is where you can consolidate these high interest debts into low interest debt, such as your mortgage. And because of this, it saves you a boatload of money. So people will say, well, how do you do that? And it kind of, we just kind of briefly explained it. You take any consumer debt that you're paying higher than 5%. You restructure that debt into your mortgage, providing that the equity is there. What happens is that you automatically free up your monthly cash flow because your rate on your debt may go from 20% down to, which is the credit cards, down to 4.5%, which is maybe your new mortgage rate. And as a result, you pay down your debt faster. You have increased monthly cash flow coming into your pocket But it's really, really important that we understand that when you restructure your debt, it's not like you're taking on more debt, you're restructuring it. You're just putting it in these multiple sandboxes, credit cards, loans, business loans, personal loans, wherever that money is, whatever rate that you're paying it, you're taking all those boxes and you're putting it into one box, your mortgage, at a much, much lower rate, right? Say 4.19, 4.5%. So what this does, it reduces the overall interest that's being paid. What this does, it frees up monthly cash flows. And what this does, it makes your multiple payments into one payment. So everybody likes to talk dollars, right, Allister?
100%.
This is where my simple mind really kicks in because we talk, 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 talk. Pretty soon it becomes a Charlie Brown. Bah, 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 bah. It's just like, I don't know where this is going. So let's talk dollars. Let's break it into simple language. $20,000 of credit card debt at 20% interest, you are going to be paying $4,000 a year in interest. If you roll that into a mortgage, that $20,000 of credit card debt into a mortgage, and let's just say at 4.5%, that interest on that 20 grand at 4.5% is $900 a year. Doing simple math, 4,000 minus 900 means you're saving how many dollars, Allister?
Beg your pardon?
4,000 minus 900.
$3,100.
How much? $3,100. If you times that by 5, it's a 5-year savings of ish.
$15,500.
Right. So again, this is where I go back. This is the same debt. It's just a dramatically different cost. I worked on a file just in the last 10 days, Allister. These guys were making great money. These folks had their mortgage coming up for renewal. We took a look at their renewal. We did the application. These guys had over $100,000 worth of debt. And that debt was everywhere, right? But again, they had no idea that they were drowning in it because they had the money to carry it, right? They didn't even realize that they had this high interest debt because it wasn't a money issue for them. Like many of us, it's a money issue. We are drowning in our debt. These folks were drowning in their debt, but they had a bigger boat to make sure that they were on top of it. But when we ran the numbers, when we restructured the debt, guess how much we saved these guys a month restructuring that $100,000 into their mortgage?
$2,000.
$4,000 a month, real dollars, Allister.
Wow.
Right? Now again, how much is that in a year? 4,000 times 12 is
That's $4,800.
$48,000.
Sorry, $48,000.
And over a course of 5 years, that's almost $250,000 that we are putting back into these guys' pockets that they didn't even know about.
Yeah.
Right? So some of us, I wish it was me, would be in that same boat, whereas I wouldn't even notice that I'm drowning in debt. But most of us, we need that life preserver because we are drowning in that debt, right? $2.5 trillion as a country that we're in debt. But then you have to ask yourselves, where is your debt? If it is in high interest debt, which is higher than your mortgage, and let's say if it's higher than 5%, this is a perfect time for you to take a look at and restructure it. So again, the 3 rules here, consolidation only works if these 3 rules are followed. You don't lower your interest payment and spend the difference. Who's been guilty of that? I have.
I think everybody has. Yeah.
Right? You don't turn short-term debt into a 30-year problem. And what I mean by that is who here has a credit card or a line of credit and they just pay the interest only? I'm guilty of that.
I did that when I was young. Yeah.
Right? Those are called never-ending loans. If you do an interest-only payment on $20,000 on your credit card, 1 year from today, how much do you still owe?
20 grand.
20 grand, right? So again, once we pay off these debts, don't run them back up. Who's been guilty of that? Right? We're talking yesterday. the old Geoff and the old Allister,
No,
not the
that's
new
it. Yeah.
Geoff and new Allister.
Yeah.
But the human nature, guys, let's be honest. We spend what we make. You have a $5,000 credit card, you pay it down to zero. Your brain automatically thinks you can go out and spend $5,000 more again. That's just how our minds work. So again, I always say to people, look, if you have debt that's higher than 5%, if you own a home, this is important. If you own a home and there's equity in that home, you need to start thinking about restructuring that debt. And when you do so, you can stick real dollars back into your pocket. And maybe it's not going to be $4,000 in your pocket, right? But again, if I was to say, if we can restructure your debt, Allister, and be able
Yep.
to put $700 a month back into your pocket, real dollars, is that going to make a difference to your family?
100% it would.
$500,
100%.
right?
$100. In all honesty, $100.
Right?
$100 is going to make a difference to a family.
Exactly. So again, where I want to leave this, guys, is take a look at where you're at. If you are swimming in debt, which again, statistically speaking, you are, right? You may realize it or you may not. And if you're not, good on you. But if you are, or if you don't even know, get connected with me. Allow me to take a look at what's going on. And again, maybe you could be these folks where we're putting $4,000 back into your family's pocket each and every month, which is almost $250,000, $250,000 over a course of 5 years. You could go and buy a condo with the savings that we're doing here.
100%. Increase your net worth. Buy a condo.
Yeah. Next week, we'll jump into mistake number 3.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, everybody, that is it. Thank you all so much for listening today. Geoff and I, as we always say, we hope we're doing everything we can to provide you guys with the most valuable content we can. We love doing this for you guys each and every week. Oh, enjoy your weekend. And literally enjoy your weekend and enjoy the fact that we don't live in the eastern part of Canada, central to eastern part of Canada. My hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba has been in an absolute deep freeze. Yesterday it was minus 27, and with the wind chill felt like minus 48. Today it feels a little bit warmer. It's a balmy, feels like minus 41. I think a friend of mine was telling me. So make sure that you get out and enjoy our weather. I challenge everybody to go out and check out the Vancouver Hot Chocolate Festival. It's supposed to be fantastic. I actually might try to get out there and grab myself a little bit of hot chocolate pastry out there. But have an amazing weekend. We will be back with all of you next week. Continue to love, like us, share us, tell everybody you know about us. And most importantly, stay empowered, stay informed, and Geoff,
Stay tuned.
that's right, baby. Stay tuned. Peace out.